Yo guys, what's up? It's Alex from Gym Studio. Let's continue with Gymlex. No proper intro because the video is pretty long. First of all, we will create a new folder and call it ReminderSetup. Then we will create a new SwiftUI view and we will call it ReminderSetupScreen. This is the screen of our reminder setup. Now, let's rename it. I don't like that you cannot put in the name while creating the SwiftUI view, but it is as it is. Let's create a new Swift file. This will be the ReminderSetupScreen model. Let's create all files. Create a new Swift file. This will be the ReminderSetupAction file. Now, create a new folder. This will be the ReminderSetupViews folder. We will put every view of the ReminderSetupScreen in this folder. Now create a new Swift file and call it ReminderSetupState, because our screen can have different states. Remove import foundation because we don't need it. Write public enum ReminderSetupState, and we can have three states at the moment: case initial, case push notifications allowed, and case push notifications not allowed. We will rename the last one later. Now let's switch to a ReminderSetupScreen model and make a public final class ReminderSetupScreen which is an observable object, and we will have a published var ViewState, which is a ReminderSetupState, and the initial value is initial. Now let's go to the tests. Click on the folder onboarding UI tests and make a new unit test case class and name it ReminderSetupScreen model tests. And it will be in Swift, so we choose Swift. We can delete the test which measures the performance because we don't need it. And we will change setup with error and teardown with error to a normal setup method because we don't want to throw an error there. We will just use setup and we will use teardown. And we can remove the throws because it cannot throw. And there are brackets missing. Now it should work. And let's delete the test example. We can also delete the file onboarding tests because we don't need it. And now let's go back to our ReminderSetupScreen model tests. We want to add testable import onboarding UI, and we want to write private var sud, which is a ReminderSetupScreen model, and sud means system under test, and we will force this variable to not be null. In production code you should never use this, but for tests, for unit tests, it's fine. And when in setup we write sud is equal to ReminderSetupScreen model, and in teardown we want to set it to null again. And now it should work. Now it works. And now we'll write func test underscore initial underscore view underscore state. I just like to separate the words with underscores for the test cases because it's much better to read them for me. And remember that your tests have to start with test, otherwise they will not be recognized as tests from Xcode. And as you can see, I changed the state to test if the test is working fine or if it just passes. I just like to do it. Now we will go to the ReminderSetupScreen and add an addState object private var screen model of the type ReminderSetupScreen model, and we will add a public initializer. And we will add a default value so it's easier to use, and later we can resolve it with dependency injection. And then we write underscore screen model is equal to state object wrap value of the screen model. Then we will go to the body and we write switch screen model dot ViewState, and in the case initial, let's just add a text initial. In the case push notifications allowed, we will add a text push notifications allowed, and in the case push notifications not allowed, we will add a text push notifications not allowed. Let's change it. We will change it later to different views, but this is now. Then we will create a new view in the ReminderSetupViews folder and we will call it ReminderSetup initial view, and let's rename it, and we will just change the text. We will create these views later. Now we will create a new SwiftUI view, and let's call it push notifications allowed view, and we will just add the text as well. Oh, Xcode crashed. Now let's rename it. Now let's change the text so we can see it later in the preview. I actually don't like the naming as mentioned before. We will go to ReminderSetupState and refactor the case push notifications not allowed, and we will just use push notifications reacted. And now we will create a new SwiftUI view, call it push notifications reacted view. Now rename it, change the text. You know how it goes. Now it should work. Let's switch back to the screen. Okay, everything looks fine. We will also add the screen model. You can just copy paste it. It has to be the same as in the screen. We could basically use different view models, but I will just use the screen model because it's just easier. And now we can use, instead of the text, we can use the views, and we have to pass the screen models because they are all of them are part of the same screen. It's good to use the same screen model. You don't have to over-engineer everything. I'm actually curious. I'm selecting the one with screen model, but he doesn't autofill it. That's so weird. Now let's change the last one. And as you can see, our preview's already updated. Now we have to create some buttons. I told you this video is gonna be long. We will go to UI components and create a new folder, and we will call it buttons. Now we will create a new SwiftUI view, and we will call it CTA Button. CTA stands for call to action. We have to rename the struct and the preview. Let's speed this up a bit. And we just close the project and open only the Swift package to be faster, and the previews will work. Now you can see that the preview should work. And we have to create the struct public, the public var body, because we want to use it outside of the Swift package. Now we will create a new Swift file. This will be the default button animation style. We will call it just default button animation. And we will import SwiftUI. We will create a public struct default animation of the type button style. We will create a public func make body and pass a configuration. And we will return some view. And we will write configuration.label. And then we will add a padding. We will add a frame with a width 325 and the height of 52, the alignment in the center. The background is orange, the foreground is white. We can just change it later. The clip shade will be a rounded rectangle with a radius of 4.0. We will add a scale effect. Is pressed 1.1 and 1. And we will add an animation with erase out duration 0.1. And the value is if the configuration is pressed. We can also pass the colors later if you want through a function, but for now we don't need it. Now we go back to our CTA button. Let's add a label with let label of the type string and an action, because we want to configure this button from outside. Then we want to add a public initializer which takes a label and an action. The action is an escaping void. Self.label is equal to label and self.action is equal to action. Now let's go to the public var body of some view. The body has to be public as well. And write button, and the string is the label. And the action is the action. The button style is the default button animation we just created. In our preview, we can create the CTA button, the label is press me, and the action. Just write print someone pressed me. Now you can see the little animation we created and our button in the preview. Now let's open our onboarding package and go to the welcome screen. We will change the continue button to the CTA button we just created, from a normal button to the CTA button basically. We will just write CTA button and pass the label is continue, and the action is the same as before. It will be trigger navigation.toggle. In one of the later videos we will add localizable strings, but not now because the video is too long anyways and it will take some time. Now we will go to a reminder initial view and we will add the CTA button as well. Basically we will just add the CTA button and the label is remind me, and the action, what will we do? To do. And we will add a normal button if someone doesn't want to get reminded. Well, let's write no thanks. And the action will be to do as well. And one last thing before we finish this video, we want to create the actions. And basically we also have to import the UI components. And we have to create a VStack around our text and buttons. And let's copy paste them into the VStack. And now you can see it in the preview. But now we want to create some actions. And we will also add a padding because it looks better. Now go to reminder setup action and we will add a public enum reminder setup action. And we will add two cases. One case request push authorization and one case skip. Now let's go to our reminder setup screen model and we will add an extension of the reminder setup screen model, and let's make the extension public. This is easier. And we will add the func perform and we will take an action. And the action is of the type reminder setup action. And then we can switch through these actions. And as you can see there. And now we can do some stuff. Let's just add prints. This is just a more SwiftUI way to call functions. You can also use normal functions, but I like this. Now we go back to the reminder setup initial view and we will call screen model.perform, and here we will use the action request push authorization, and on no thanks we will perform the action skip. And now we need to do one more thing. We have to go to the welcome screen from the onboarding package, and the navigation destination is not anymore next screen, but it will be reminder setup screen. We could basically pass this action from the app and make it more configurable, but we do not need it now and we don't want to over-engineer everything. Now let's run it, press continue, and no thanks. And as you can see, it's to do skip and remind me request push authorization. Guys, this is it. It was a pretty long video. I hope you enjoyed it anyway. If you have any questions, let us know in the comments. See you in the next video. Bye.
Like the video if you liked the video, dislike the video if you disliked the video, subscribe if you want to be notified on our future content. We are also on Instagram and Facebook. Feel free to follow us there as well. And have a great day. Start creating, stop consuming.